Alrighty, so we've got the axle completely disassembled. We've got the differential out because we're going to be doing some axle seals. Got all of the Artec Truss pieces painted with on the inside so that there's at least a little rust protection when we weld. And then we've been just test fitting, making sure all the pieces go in and fit exactly where they need. And wasn't sure about the instructions. I think the instructions label these the wrong side, but they are keyed and they do fit specifically on this axle, on the bottom, on the top. And so we're gonna clean this all up, get some paint ground off, get the welder out, and get to it. Okay, so we've been going through with a Sharpie and we are marking because one of the things you want to do, and we're gonna have to clean this axle, but you want all the paint ground off when you weld, because you don't want the paint getting into your weld because that contaminates it, weakens it, and so we're just putting the truss in place, figuring out where it's going to touch, and then we're marking so that we can come in and just get it thoroughly cleaned down to bare metal with no contaminants of any kind, get the best kind of weld. So for a couple of places where we can't get with the wheel, I'm using a carbide tip with an air tool, and if you do, make sure you're careful because this is a lot more aggressive than that wheel, and it's going to dig into the metal pretty fast, so just be careful. So we've got the axle prepped and ready, and yes, it's not clean yet. Yes, we are going to thoroughly clean it once we're done, but we've got all the surfaces where we're going to contact and weld metal on metal prepped and ready to go. And we're going to start with the lower control arm skid plates, which are basically just some bent 1/4-inch plate.
Looks 3/16 actually.
Is it 3/16?
This is 3/16.
This is thicker. Just a couple of tacks at the beginning, just to get them in place. And then since we are welding to cast steel, we are going to be heating this up before we fully burn this in. So we've got the lower control arm skid plates in place, and we have welded the lower C to the tube, which is regular steel, and then we are about to start doing the cast steel. And process for cast steel is to heat it up to 400 degrees and then hit it with the welder and then wrap it with the blanket and let it cool off. And before anybody says anything, these ball joints are already sacrificial. They're going away, so I'm not worried about cooking my ball joints. The upper is 400 over there. Yeah, I think we're good. Good. Look.
I love that it said 454.
A good number.
Focus in this area. That's 500 degrees up there. Okay, yeah, that's good.
The combination of the heat sinking that happens,
Yeah.
as well as just the amount of
Can you grab one of the clamps?
So, among the things we're doing while we have the front axle out, we're going to go ahead and install the Synergy track bar brace that reinforces the track bar bracket here on the frame, as well as supporting the end of the sector shaft for the steering box. So it just provides more solid mount to both of these, help avoid and prevent eventual damage. Been very happy with the results of this synergy brace that we're putting in on my JL. I had their brace on the JK as well, following a failure of the sector shaft, which was less than entertaining when it happened on the trail. So the first step here of taking this out is because the bracket just wraps around the track bar bracket here, so it is necessary to replace this bracket. The one special tool necessary for this job is a 42mm socket for the nut on the end of the sector shaft. Not something real common to have in most people's shops. When all else fails, power tools. Okay, applied some thread locker generously to the new nut for the pitman arm. What this does is it provides a surface for the bushing, support bushing, to rest against. You do not want this thing coming loose at any point in the future. So you apply the thread locker, and then 184 foot-pounds is the torque spec. So we're going to start with just a wrench to get it. Okay. And again, we're going to rotate the steering box to the point where it reaches its stop. And then move to the big wrench.
Come on, a few more ugga-duggas.
My duggas have ugged.
You're not straight on the nut. Told you.
No, we're
I'm trying to figure out how I... Huh.
okay.
Okay. That's 184. The bigger O-ring goes all the way to the top of the fitting here. And does the thinner one
Fits in the groove.
fits in the groove?
Tube with groove.
Goes with the cam with the flange.
Is that how that goes?
Sorry guys, we're all MASH fans. And then, is there provided grease in there?
No.
Okay. There's some grease that needs to go in the
They want
thinner
that.
one. Yeah.
They want that greased.
Yes, I do.
Okay. A little bit of grease on the fitting here so that it's not going together dry. Making sure to coat the lower O-ring. Proceeding to drop steering box on April's kid.
There's that.
It doesn't fit. Okay. So we're gonna loosen the steering box, and I'm gonna drop the sway bar and hit April in the head.
You really tried.
What was I saying?
What you're doing?
Oh, I'm loosening the bolts on the steering gearbox, and Kenneth is gonna hold it to make sure it doesn't fall on April. The bolts come all the way out?
Yep. So it wouldn't hurt us to go grab a hold of the bracket, however.
Which I unwrapped.
Ah. hand me bracket.
And you bracket. Okay. Okay, and what was the note about the different
Pay
bolts?
attention to which ones there should be longer and too long or too shorter.
Unless you have a newer. Yeah, these are all the same length. Okay, you have the whole thing.
Yeah, I've got it.
So,
I mean, it's gonna drop, I'm sure, a little bit. It's gonna run away.
all right. I think it's on the older JLs. There are two different length bolts, but this is a 2021, and it
Already has.
already
steel
has
box.
the steel steering box with the 4 bolts of the same length. All right, so this is the original factory bolt from the steering gearbox. This is the replacement bolt that came with the kit. Unfortunately, our kit is missing one of the bolts, so we may end up having to reuse this. The reason is that you use the new bolt is that this bolt is longer and works with the thicker flange here on this bracket, and is able to reach all the way through and properly secure the steering gearbox. And so it has you replace all 4 bolts, except for the fact that we only got 3 out of the 4. But I'm going to leave the easiest one to get to and go find one of these and replace it later. It's a fair ways in. Okay. Loctite. Yeah, because this is a steering assembly, I want a little bit of Loctite. Kind of feels like it's going. And yeah, if you have the misfortune of having the kit missing a bolt, leaving one of these 2 off and reusing one of the factory ones on the front here will certainly be easier than reusing it on the back if you come back and get it later. And you have the small impact. And do. Okay. And as you install it, you'll see the low profile head on the one bolt and the thicker, taller profile on this one. And this is to go in here. Maybe if it, yeah. Anyway, it goes in here, and the low profile helps clear the track bar end. And then the thick one will go up there. Does it need more than one washer?
I'm gonna guess with the low profile, that's the one that doesn't get one because there's only 3 of these washers.
Okay. And of course, tighten up.
Hold still, hold still.
Okay.
Now turn. So this is just putting all the bolts in place so that as you tighten things down, they all stay in alignment.
Yeah, and the factory track bar bolt, and actually in this case my aftermarket upgrade bolt is too short and doesn't have enough thread sticking out. And the bolt that comes with the kit is a lot longer and will thread properly.
And then
Just a Zerk fitting
Into.
into the bearing block. And this goes up here and saddles around the nut they put on there. And this is what actually holds the sector shaft in place.
Goes into the
Oh.
end and the lines with the hole.
Ah, okay. Okay, so assembling this, there is a set screw. It goes in, needs an Allen key, and then the Zerk fitting goes on the other side, and the two holes are different sides, so that it's basically impossible to put them in the wrong way. So they really want this nut to come off. And so what it looks like is that this set screw just keeps this inner bearing from spinning inside the housing. It's what it looks like to me. It doesn't actually set against anything on the inside, but it does go in the hole, and it keeps the Zerk lined up so that when you grease it, the grease actually gets in. There we go. There it goes.
The variety of hardware they use on this suggests that things were very tight when they were designing it.
Yep.
So you want to make sure you get all the right parts in the right places.
Yeah. And then, okay, so this is roughly in place, but the holes don't line up because we haven't tightened everything yet. And so I think that's the step we do now. And done a little wiggle and a jiggle, and maybe this will start.
Seems like that's a fiddly bit.
Okay, it's about as far as that, well, close to tight on that one.
Well, it's enough. It's started.
Yeah.
So
And
now we start tightening everything up, and they want 60 foot-pounds on these half-inch bolts.
And we routinely torque to maximum allowable torquage. So yeah. Okay. And of course, this one is being stubborn. The bolt head is right up against the bracket. And so an impact socket is too thick to fit. But we're using, between a combination of adapters, a thin wall socket fits just fine. Okay, so just to point out a little further on the bolt, it's this guy right here. You can see is just barely sticking through, whereas the one that I can't reach that's above it, and the ones you can see on this side, do come through and have about 6 or so threads sticking out past the end of the steering box, and that's what gives it its strength, is having all the threads go all the way through. This one is here only again because the kit was missing one of the bolts. I'm going to run to the hardware store and buy the right bolt to go in here that'll match the rest of them. Alrighty. So you can edit this first part.